fans of a Horus heresy and talking straight, thank you very much for joining me for a video where I'm going to talk about the recent price increases that have been applied to Forge World products for international customers. But more specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Warhammer community and their role in the whole communication around this set of events. I'm sure you've all heard, but if you haven't, just let me give a quick recap. On the 22nd of August 2018, Forge World implemented their pay in the local currency system to their website for international orders. So if you are buying from outside of the UK, you now pay in your local currency. This was announced on the 6th of August 2018. However, what wasn't announced on the 6th of August 2018 was a whole raft of substantial, and in some cases, not to use hyperbole, eye-watering price increases have been applied to products. I think this has come as a shock. I suppose let's get the biases out of the way. I live in the UK, I buy UK. This doesn't affect me. However, we're not just in the UK, are we? We're an international community of gamers. There's no two ways about it that this change in the prices is going to be highly detrimental to the health of our hobby overall. It's not a good thing, and there's no way to spin it as being a good thing. I'm going to talk about how it could be justified in certain instances and think a little bit about that. Even so, the main thrust of this video is going to be looking at the role that the Warhammer community has played in conversing with us customers. As I said, on the 6th of August, Forge World sent an email out and also posted an article on Warhammer Community titled "Better Service, Faster Shipping." And this article essentially explained how you will no longer buy in £sterling and then make a conversion at the checkout or via, say, PayPal. You would see the price in your local currency. So that could be US dollars, euros, Australian dollars, Japanese yen, so on and so forth. Fine. This article extolled a number of virtues about this change in service. So, for example, it said, and I quote, "You won't have to, quote, muck around with a currency converter, working out how much your Forge World miniatures are." So that sounds great. There's loads of positives on there. Then yesterday, on the 22nd of August, another email was sent out saying that there was free shipping available for a limited time and setting out some new postage rates for international shipping and domestic shipping. And Forge World has finally got its act together. Finally, after years and years of charging over the odds postage on medium to high cost items that don't hit their free postage threshold, have finally put reasonable postage rates in place. So gone are the 12 and 15% postage rates that were levied. That's good. What isn't good is in between these two pieces from the Warhammer community team extolling the virtues of this proposed change, there was a complete absence of discussion or mentioning the fact that prices were going to significantly increase for international customers. Now, the price ranges we are talking about are big. I mean, I would love to have all the data to crunch all this and to give you a proper analysis of this. And in the same way that I did when I looked at Forge World prices 18 months ago. And I'll leave a link to that piece of work I did in the description. If you are thinking that I'm biased one way or another, I strongly suggest you watch that video. I strongly suggest you watch it full stop. I'm a fair person and I give a fair analysis of the data and information to hand. I've seen from some sites who have captured information and other media I've seen that there are price rises on certain kits that are all the way up to 40% and anything in between. These are big numbers. I mean, let's say 20-30%. It's big figures. Within the two articles that the Warhammer community have posted to address this, they have completely and utterly failed to address this point and draw it to the attention of their customers. I'm not very happy with how they've gone about this, and I'm just going to point out to you that these people are not to be trusted anymore. People will probably say, you know, don't forget they are paid for by Games Workshop, they're part of the corporate machine, which they are. But the Warhammer community have very carefully cultivated a spirit of engagement and building customer bonds and being very friendly and forward with the customer base. And if you read around and listen to commentators, you will hear that people do like what the Warhammer community do and they think they're a good thing. But I'm now saying to you, the Warhammer community has destroyed the trust that they built with us customers, with how they've acted as a mouthpiece on these price changes. And I would go so far as to say they have deliberately obfuscated what's going on and even managed to misinform people, not by specifically saying things that aren't true, but they've put an awful lot of spin on events that are happening to completely draw away from the fact that prices were going up. And they knew it, no doubt about it, they knew it. I have another criticism of the Warhammer Community team. This isn't first-hand, but this is something I've heard from someone I certainly trust with regards to having an opinion on a current event. And the Warhammer Community team have been censoring comments, or let's say censoring, oh, that's quite a harsh term, isn't it? They've been deleting critical comments and manipulating ratings on comments on their Facebook page on the discussion threads that got going around these price increases because they didn't want to give answers, or they were unable to give answers, and instead of letting the comments stand, there's nothing to suggest that were any rude or offensive comments. They were probably critical and challenging. The Warhammer Community team decided the best way to deal with that was to hide the problem. That's not good either, is it? I say they've been quite dishonest and manipulative, obfuscational in terms of how they've managed the message with regards to the implementation of local currency payments. And, you know, to be quite honest, I think when George Orwell coined the term doublethink and newspeak, which we tend to think of today as being doublespeak, well, the Warhammer community have been doublespeaking very, very well. And that's not a good perception for someone to have of them. I guess the next thing to say is, well, okay, so absolutely dismal handling of the message to the community. Inexcusable, not acceptable at all. Let's set that aside for a moment and the problem with Warhammer Community in this, and think about the actual price increases. Are these justified? Well, it's very complicated and there isn't a single answer, is my view at the moment. Certain countries are less affected and some countries are very badly affected. And within that, the picture is also confused. So, for example, I've heard from someone who lives in Poland who has said that their prices seem about on a par to what they had been paying previously before the local currency payments went in. I think this could be because Poland is outside the Eurozone, so they don't use a euro. So there's an example of not being affected by a price increase. In European countries or Eurozone countries, so countries that use the euro as their currency, there have been some substantial increases, and I'm hearing anything between 15 and 20%. If you look at it on a kit-by-kit basis, the price increases are all over the place. There is no consistent increase in price that's being applied. So, for example, I don't know, let's say we have a Mastodon tank that will have a different price increase to, say, a set of Mark 6 Corvus Marines, which is very peculiar. I don't quite understand what's gone on there, why they haven't applied a flat percentage increase. Now, I've got two ideas as to what's happening here. Firstly, there is some deliberate obfuscation going on there. The Forge World have, let's say they've worked out an average price point, and to make it difficult for people to critique what they've done within this, they've looked at the sales volume data and they've moved prices, let's say exchange rate premiums, let's call it, because that's what they are. They move them up and down to give an overall cost effect that they want to achieve. However, that said, there seems to be a general view that the price increases for the Eurozone and the USA are explained by the drop in value of the pound over the last 18 months. Because prior to that, people in Europe had been able to buy in sterling because the euro was stronger relative to sterling, be getting quite a good deal through that. I think the same is true with the dollar. If you then live further afield, and in particular when you're moving to Australasia, the price increases are at their greatest. Unfortunately, it's the usual suspects of Australia, New Zealand. I've also heard from someone out in Japan who are seeing very marked increases in price. And we don't know why. The increases in price just don't seem to be justified. People out in Australia now found themselves in the same position that they are with Games Workshop products, that they're paying a huge premium over retail prices in the UK and even in Europe and in the US. And it's worse with that with Forge World. It's actually worse than the Games Workshop situation because the supply on Forge World is so limited that there is no way to buy third party. You can only essentially buy direct from Forge World if you want to buy genuine products. Games Workshop, there are routes through independent sellers where you can get hold of the products at a discounted rate. That line of opportunity has evaporated for the Australians. So what do I think here? Well, I think there is an argument for adjusting international prices to a degree to account for the recent performance of sterling. However, that has to be on a case-by-case, currency-by-currency basis. Some adjustment is fair, but certainly not to the degree that's been applied in certain parts of the world. That aside, in some ways, that is a bit moot here. The issue that I want to tackle, because as I say, I buy in the UK, the issue for me, the principle for me, is the sheer dishonesty of the communications that we've received from Warhammer Community. Not once have they had the courage and honesty, and let's be honest, and in all truth, it's respect for the customer to say, look, we need to increase our prices and these are the reasons why. Have they ever said that? No. What they've done is they've obfuscated and spun up other lines saying faster service, warehouse in the US, cheaper postage rates, which of course for the customer overall is not what they care about. What they care about first and foremost is a product cost and quality, and then to basically get into a situation where they can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen with criticism coming back to them via the community links they have promoted and developed so much, i.e. deleting comments on Facebook. That sits really badly with me, and I've got a very sour and tainted view of the Warhammer Community team and their communications from this point on. If I ever see communication from them again with any sort of service change and description, anything like that, the first thing I'm going to be thinking is not what are they telling me, I'm going to be thinking what are they not saying here, what are they not telling me, what are they trying to hide, what are they trying to potentially not tell me. And that's the bed that the Warhammer Community have made for themselves. If you break the trust of your customers, you're going to have a mountain to climb to re-establish it. And the Warhammer Community has broken the trust of the customer base over this. I don't think they'll be looked at again the same. So what do you do? Well, Macca over at the Outer Circle, who lives out in Australia, obviously he feels very passionate about the pricing situation in general. I think in particular, this has struck a real nerve. He has started a petition. It's got well over 2,000 signatures now. It's addressed directly to Kevin Rountree, the Chief Executive Officer of Games Workshop and the ultimate decision maker behind this, asking him to reverse the price rises or at least bring them in line with other price rises that have occurred internationally. So I've signed that as a show of solidarity because it might not affect me directly straight away in the UK, but we're all part of the same community. And also remember, what happens to me if Forge World suddenly has a plummet in international sales? Well, 75% of Games Workshop sales are overseas. So if Forge World suffer badly through this, ultimately it's going to come back and make the hobby I enjoy a poorer and less vibrant place. So if you're living in the UK and you think this doesn't affect you, well, think again, because it does. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Lots of other people have been calling this out and giving their views on social media. I'll share a couple of videos that I think tell us something about this. So there's a couple from the Outer Circle, from Macca, and then there's also one from Kirioth TV as well. So I'll leave links to those in the description. Those are my thoughts on the Forge World price increases for international customers. Please do share yours. I would very much like to hear them as well. In particular, I would really like to hear from people who live in countries outside of the United Kingdom. And if you'd like to share examples of how your prices have been affected, I think that will be very interesting for all of us to see and get examples of those. Please do share those. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.